Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Rocco. I review albums, I talk about music, and thanks again for joining me on another one of my music rambling videos. And Happy New Year's! I don't know when I'm gonna upload this, but it's currently New Year's Eve 2019, a little earlier in the day. Later on, I'm gonna be going out, partying, all those New Year's festivities. And I thought, okay, you know what? I can't finish 2019 without talking about this album. Terraformer by Thank You Scientist. This album right here, by far my favorite album from 2019. And, I really had to get this off my chest. Just in case I die of alcohol poisoning tonight, at least I'll have this on film. I told my friends, I'm like, okay, upload this video in case I die. Because I really have to get this review out. It was my favorite album of 2019. And I think this is such a special album, such a unique album, and just one that I've been obsessed with since it came out in June of this year. And I mean, totally obsessed with. But it's an album that I didn't want to review earlier on because it's one of those albums that you really have to listen to so many times to really get an appreciation for it. Or, you know what, not to get an appreciation for it, but to really absorb it and really internalize the music. And I thought just putting out a hasty, half-ass review back in like September or August, whenever I originally wanted to review it, wouldn't have done it justice. Wouldn't have done this fantastic album what it really deserved. So here we are today at the end of 2019, and we're going to be going in depth with this phenomenal fucking album. One of the best. And you know what? I haven't heard every album from 2019, obviously. I'm notorious for taking forever to get into new music. I mean, when I hear a new album, I gotta hear it like at least like 10 fucking times to really like internalize it. And in that sense, I'm not gonna be as prolific as other music reviewers who review like a new album every single week. Honestly, I wish I could do that. I just can't. Like I don't think I would do it justice. So that's why I do a lot of classic reviews and things I'm more familiar with, kind of like to buffer the new album reviews. But I'm definitely going forward in 2020. I'm definitely going to make more of an effort to review more albums, more modern albums interspersed with classic albums. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, guys, 2019 has been a great year for music. I mean, early on in the year, some albums that come to mind were Dream Theater's Distance Over Time, a great classic sounding Dream Theater album. Big comeback from their other shit in the 2010s, The Astonishing and the self-titled. I do like the self-titled. And other great bands, some great Italian music. Banco del Mutuo Soccorso, that was the biggest surprise for me in 2019. Releasing an album after like 20 fucking years. That was a great surprise. And then so many others. Opeth's new album is great. Rival Sons, some great hard rock music. So many albums, so little time. This whole decade, like the whole 2010s was actually a great year for music. And it wasn't just 2019. I mean, 2018, 2017, so many great albums that come to mind. One of my favorites, From Silence to Somewhere, great progressive rock album by Norwegian band Wobbler, and another great one from the Nordic countries. All Traps on Earth, their album A Drop of Light from 2018. Again, a classic progressive rock album. And these last few years have really changed my whole outlook on the music industry. I've been very cynical. I've been very rooted in the past, listening to the same classic albums over and over and over again. For example, this one here, Relayer by Yes. Oh yeah, I got a custom made shirt of this shit for Christmas. Thanks, Grace. Anyway, albums like that I've heard like millions and millions of times. And I feel like, these past few years have really opened my eyes that new music coming out these days can be fantastic. And I've been very cynical because all the popular music, going through high school and everything, it's always been crappy in my opinion. Like, all the uninspired hip hop and rap and things like that. And I do recognize there are some like great rap artists and rap albums, but I feel like everything mainstream these days is just so like generic and so unimaginative. And I've been very cynical, so I've always kind of, retreated back to the classic albums. But in recent years, I've been listening to more and more of the underground stuff, and it's totally restored my faith in humanity. I mean, albums like this, albums like Terraformer, are just such a joy to listen to, such a treat. And I feel that, that you really have to search to the underground for the classic stuff. Because if you do, the 2010s is a treasure trove of fantastic music. I mean, I have a fucking backlog of albums that I've been meaning to listen to. Like, honestly, it's like a freaking 10-foot long list of albums. And I know I'm never going to get around to it anytime soon. So, I'm just, at this point, I'm just going forward, taking life as it comes, just listening to whatever I feel like. But yeah, there's so many albums that I missed out on in the 2010s. And I regret it. I should have been more active listening to like 2010s music. But I'm sure in the future I'll get to a lot of like the top albums. But for now, let's focus in on Thank You Scientist's 2019 album, Terraformer. And yeah, Thank You Scientist, honestly, I never heard of the band. They're a progressive rock / jazz fusion / pop. Honestly, they combine so many genres. They're from New Jersey in the States, and they formed in 2011. So a pretty recent band. They only have 3 albums, this being their 3rd. And yeah, up until this album, I had never heard of the band whatsoever. My friend, my good friend Krebs told me about it. He's like, Rocco, you gotta check this out on Prog Archives, which is, if you're not familiar with Prog Archives, it's basically like this database of all the progressive rock albums, and it ranks them based on like votes. And the top album of 2019 at the time was this album Terraformer by Thank You Scientist. And my friend's like, Rocco, you gotta check this album out. I just heard it. It's a fucking masterpiece. Like, it's phenomenal. And I looked at the runtime. It was 84 minutes. And I've always criticized bands these days for trying to cram too much music into an album. I mean, the average album length these days is like over an hour. And I feel like back in the day, back in like the 70s and 80s, when you had like the vinyl LP format, that 45-minute runtime was just perfect. I mean, you could actually sit down, listen to that album, and like still go about your day. But now it's a fucking event, like an hour and a half long album. Like, it's hard to listen to all that shit at the same time. So I was a little skeptical. So I'm like, okay, you know what, man? We'll listen to half the album tonight and then the other half the next night. So, we connected over Facebook and we played the album simultaneously. And it was pretty late that night. And we heard the first disc of the album. Because technically it is a double album. And, fuck, man, there was not 1 second of wasted space. And I was tempted, if I wasn't dead tired, I was tempted to just go ahead and listen to like the whole second half as well. But we didn't end up doing that. We ended up listening to it the second day. And the second half was just as fucking good. And I'm like, oh my god, there's got to be a few seconds of filler. But you know what? I went back and listened to it again, and there was no filler. This is just from start to finish, 84 minutes of pure musical ecstasy. I mean, it's a masterpiece. It's actually one of my favorite albums of all time. Okay, not just 2019, of all time. But yeah, whenever I think of the year 2019, this album is always going to come to mind. It's probably my most listened to album of the year. I mean, I would blast this album all summer. Honestly, like, I remember so many days just walking back and forth to work listening to this album. And I must have heard it at least like 30 times or so during the summer, like pretty much on a daily basis. But yeah, incredible album, incredible memories of listening to it. And yeah, it really, like, I realized it was one of my favorite albums of all time at about like the 10th to 15th listen. So it does take some time to really internalize it because you're just being constantly bombarded by just amazing, bombastic music. And yeah, it's just, I was kind of disappointed because I recently went back to Prog Archives, and this album went way down the rankings. It's like in the 20s now or something of 2019, and I'm like, fuck, like, you know what? I doubt 20 albums released this year were better than this fucking album. But I haven't heard the albums that were ranked above it yet, so I can't say. But I really doubt that there's anything better than this. Comment below if there is, in your opinion. I'd love to hear that, but for me, I doubt there's anything better than this. And yeah, so now let's, I was going to like get into a little bit about the history of the band. Usually this is like about a 9 to 10 minute subsection of my reviews, but because I just got into this band this year and they're a pretty recent band and I haven't heard any of their old albums, it's going to be a pretty short section. Basically, all I have to say is that this band here, they formed in New Jersey. They're a 7-piece band, and I think they formed in a music school or something, or a music college, and it really shows because the musicianship and the professionalism of the musicianship on this album is just top notch. It really shows that these guys are classically trained, or maybe not classically trained, but at least like, schooled musicians. Like, these guys know what the hell they're doing. and they're just virtuosos on their respective instruments. They've gone through a few lineup changes, most notably, I think, when they started touring, when they got signed to their record label they're on now. A few members felt pressured and they had to leave the band. But yeah, right now they've been going strong with their current 7-piece lineup, consisting of a vocalist, guitar player, bass player, drum player. So they're your standard rock band right there. But they also have a violin player, a saxophone player, and a trumpet player. And though they put them to good use. I mean, they're not just there every once in a while. I mean, these guys are performing on every single song, and it just fits in so well. And the band, in an ideal world, these guys would be number one on the radio. They'd be touring the whole world. They'd be larger than life. But because of their music and how uncommercial it is, and we'll get into that later, because it is very catchy and like the songwriting's fantastic, but there's a lot of jazz, a lot of like heavy metal components to it that might throw a lot of fans off. And of course, you have the saying that when you make a compromise, no party is happy. And in this sense, it's a musical compromise because they're combining so many different genres. And a hardcore metal fan might not appreciate that, and a hardcore jazz fan might not appreciate that. But being a progressive rock fan, I love when bands do that, when they take like influences from all over the place and just put it together in a melting pot. And I think no band does that better than Thank You Scientist, because these guys are just great. They combine jazz, okay? You got the saxophone player, the trumpet player. There's even some Latin vibes going on. They combine heavy metal. There's some pretty heavy riffs on this album. Some absolutely amazing shredding. The guitar playing on this album is just fucking phenomenal. The vocals are really unique. They're very poppy, very accessible. The guy kind of sounds like Michael Jackson, and kind of like a cross between Michael Jackson and oh man, who am I thinking of? I think like Bruno Mars or something. He has like a very soft, very higher pitched voice, and it's really unique. And I don't know. On first listen, I gotta be honest with you guys, I didn't think Salvatore Morano's vocals suited the music. I thought it was a little too weak, a little too didn't have enough balls to it. But over time, I've grown to love it so much, and I really think it gives the album a unique and lighthearted atmosphere. And the violin playing is just some of the violin solos on this album just get you so worked up. Some of the sax and trumpet solos, it's an incredible like amalgam of all kinds of music. And what really holds it together is the songwriting. I mean, the songwriting on paper, it sounds like a crazy mishmash of musical wankery and fucking combining all these genres, but the songwriting is so strong. And I think this is what sets it apart from a lot of the other progressive rock bands I've heard these days, where it's just really style over substance. I mean, the style being the musical virtuosity, and like Dream Theater comes to mind, bands like that. But this band here's songwriting is just freaking phenomenal. I mean, every single song on this album is memorable, catchy. The choruses are just larger than life, and yet you have this complex, jazzy, progressive instrumental passages just bombarding you between the verses and the choruses. And it just makes for just one of the most unique listening experiences. Like, honestly, words don't do it justice. You just gotta sit your ass down and listen to it. It's just so unique. And another thing I love about it, it's so lighthearted and playful and joyful, and it just really lifts up your spirit. There's no really dark or depressing undertones on this album whatsoever. And you could tell the band aren't taking themselves too seriously. They're just having a great time. I mean, just honestly, all you gotta do is just go to the band's website and read like their manifesto. It's fucking hilarious. I mean, these guys have an amazing sense of humor. I mean, you look at their profile picture on Spotify, they're just in robes and look like fucking Hugh Hefner in the Playboy Mansion. And these guys are just hilarious. Even on their website, it says their manifesto is they make weird music for weird people who still care about weird music. And I'm a weird person. I admit it. I'm a quirky fucking, you wouldn't really consider me a normal person. I like weird music, and I care about weird music. So this is fucking... all the stars are lining up. All the planets are lining up for me loving this album. And yeah, and it's just uplifting. That's the main thing. It's just so... it just makes you feel like $1,000,000. It's so joyous. And again, I think that comes from Salvatore's vocals and Tom Monda's fantastic guitar playing. And just speaking of Tom Monda, I mean, this guy really shreds on this album. I mean, some of the guitar solos on this album are just some of the best I've heard in recent times. I mean, I'm calling it right now. This guy here, Tom Monda, he's gonna be the next fucking big thing in the guitar world. I'm telling you right now. Mark my words, okay? His guitar playing on this album is just freaking incredible. And the amazing thing is, he's not a show off. Like, he does his solo and then he just goes back to like playing his usual riffs and everything. There's never any like, 5-minute wankery guitar solo or anything like that. And it's just, all the solos are just so memorable. And they come in at the best times. And again, him being the main songwriter is just, this guy's a true talent. And I'm sure we're all going to be hearing his name in years to come of, with Thank You Scientist and maybe other projects he'll be doing. But right now, I think he's only in Thank You Scientist. And again, Salvatore Moroni as well. His vocals are really unique. Again, it's ironic because I said he sounded like Michael Jackson, but that's just a comparison. Like, he doesn't sound exactly like Michael Jackson. So yeah, very unique vocal style. And the whole band in general, just, it's amazing how they just switch genres at the drop of a hat. And how they go from just sheer intensity to just bliss and peace. Again, at the drop of a hat. I mean, it's just incredible. There's nothing more to say about it. I was just kind of sad because I checked the website and I didn't see them. I didn't see any shows announced for Toronto here in Canada. I'm from Toronto. I see them playing Jersey, all over the States, and even in Great Britain these past few months. But I haven't seen any Canadian dates other than Vancouver, and that's all the way on the fucking West Coast. So hopefully they come here because I will pay any amount of money to see these guys live. I mean, it must be a fucking spectacle to see how these guys play these instrumental passages, these complex and intricate musical passages. I would honestly, that would be such a treat to see these guys. So if you're watching, guys, come to Toronto. Like, I'm sure there's like somewhat of a fan base here. I know you guys aren't like number one on the charts or anything, but I'm sure there's a great subset of progressive rock and even like jazz fusion fans that would love to see you guys. So please come to Toronto. I'm begging you. I'll pay any amount of money. And yeah, so hopefully they come. So, alright guys, so without further ado, let's jump into the track-by-track reviews because there are a lot of songs on this album. I think 13 songs. It's a double album. I got a whole shitload of shit to say about these songs. Another thing I should mention before we get into the review is that a lot of these songs reach the 10-minute mark, the 8-minute mark. So there's a lot of epics on this album, but honestly, no song feels longer than 5 minutes. Like, this song is just zoom by. And that's just a testament to the songwriting. I mean, you're never bored. There's so many time changes. You're always being bombarded. But it's done in such a tasteful way where you don't feel like the band is just showing off their powers. So yeah, so many great songs. Honestly, you can't even pick like a highlight song. They're all freaking highlights. I mean, there's a few shorter tracks, kind of like interlude tunes, where, someone might consider that filler. I don't. I think it perfectly suits the album. But, some people might think of it as filler. But those songs maybe are the weaker ones. But among like the 8, 9, 10-minute songs, they're all pretty much equal. They're all just amazing masterpieces. So without further ado, let's get into the track-by-track reviews. Alright guys, so kickstarting the album, we got Wrinkle, which is a 2.5-minute short, sweet, compact instrumental that basically sets the scene for the album, introduces like the overall sound of the album, really combining some like heavy metal riffs at some points and a lot of jazz, really introducing all the instruments that come onto the album, and honestly, just no wasted space whatsoever. I mean, it would have been so easy for the band to just phone this in. It seems like more and more bands these days are starting off their albums with short, atmospheric instrumentals that, honestly, most of the time, they just seem like filler. But Thank You Scientist is no ordinary band. I mean, this song here is extremely complex. The riff of the song alone is just so intricate. It goes through so many twists and turns. And I love how the song just reaches so many build-ups and crescendos and climaxes. And, really, it just never leaves you hanging. There's this great instrumental breakdown in the center with the saxophone and the trumpet playing these intricate jazzy rhythms. And then in the background, you got these crunchy metal riffs from Tom Monda. Just fantastic. Even the introduction of the song, it has this spacey guitar intro. Makes you feel like you're just floating out into the cosmos before the sax comes in with the main riff. And then Sure enough, all the other instruments follow suit, like the trumpet then comes in, and then even a little bit of the violin. And honestly, just a great opening track, just a great palate cleanser, setting up the scene of the album. And honestly, an awesome instrumental, very memorable. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. I mean, it's rare to see a 2-minute instrumental with this much complexity, this much packed in, and, has so much to offer. So yeah, Wrinkle, great way to start the album. And now let's move into the first track with vocals. Alright guys, track number 2, it's called Fox Mulder. Apparently something from the X-Files, I don't know, but the way it's spelled, you would never guess it. It's FXMLDR, but I don't know. Again, just showing the band's kind of unique brand of humor. And guys, what can you say about this song? I think this was the lead single off the album, the first single, and honestly, again, in a perfect society, this song will be #1 on the radio. I mean, it has one of the catchiest choruses you can ever imagine. Some of the most intricate, mind-melting musicianship of all time. I mean, there's so much compacted into these songs. It's so hard to just really think of the song as a whole. There's just so many highlights to talk about, so many changes. So I think that's how I'm going to be reviewing these songs. I'm just going to talk about, like, the highlights of the songs rather than, like, an overall thing, because really, like, there's no really unifying concept in these songs. It just takes you from one place to the next and then back and all over the map. It's just a crazy adventure. And yeah, this track here, honestly, right off the bat, just starts off with this hard-hitting riff, just immediately comes in. And the band sounds so tight. And I mean, every instrument goes into this riff. The sax, the trumpet, the guitar. And it's just just a tight riff. And then before you know it, the lead singer comes in, his vocals are all distorted. And to be honest, I mentioned this earlier in the review, I thought the vocals on this album, the first time I heard them, were a little too light, a little too, didn't have enough grit to them, didn't have enough aggression. And, with this song, arguably, like, being the first song on the album, it's the main offender in terms of that. Like, I find the choruses, like, maybe for my liking, a little bit too happy, a little bit too jumpy. So I think maybe, like, I already had that bitter taste in my mouth going throughout the entire album. But honestly, like, over time, I already mentioned, I'm so used to the vocals, and I can't imagine this song with any other vocalist. Honestly, he just brings so much joy and so much passion into the song. And, again, very catchy choruses, very, very good hooks on the track. And, especially the part where they sing, "Light years away, you've made it." Dun, 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 dun. I love that part right there. It just pumps me up every single time. And honestly, there's just so many time changes, it's hard to remember. There's this awesome part early on in the song with the violin playing. The song kind of just winds down into this cool kind of mid-tempo section. And the bass playing in the background is really cool as well. I mean, during that quiet violin section, there's some fucking awesome bass playing in the background. And my favorite part of the whole song, at around like the 4-minute mark, the song winds down again. Again, it's been very up-tempo, very, very joyous, very upbeat up to this point. But then the song just winds down, and this sexy saxophone solo comes in. I mean, at first it sounds extremely jazzy, extremely laid back, but then it builds up and builds up, and it doesn't sound jazzy at the end. I mean, something happens in the midsection of the saxophone solo where the saxophone transforms from a jazz instrument to a progressive rock instrument, reaching these incredible climaxes that you don't hear with usual like jazz saxophone playing. And that's for me, that's the best part of the song right there. It gets really emotional near the end, and again, it gets followed by a heavy riff, some trumpet playing, and then the original riff of the song, the just seamlessly comes back in. And I'm reading notes. There's so much to talk about, guys. Oh my god, there's this amazing trumpet build-up. I love that part. Right before the chorus comes in, there's this trumpet build-up, and I freaking love that. It's so epic. And then the singer comes back in. He hits a really awesome high note at the end of the song, or a really great scream at the end of the track that just really, puts the punch back into the song. And just the way the song even ends, you could tell these guys were geniuses. Like, they don't end the song. Like, the song, you think it's gonna end, and then they keep playing and playing for another, like, 30, 40 seconds, and you have no idea what's gonna happen. Is the song gonna continue? Is it gonna end? And then it ends. But just overall, such a fantastic song. So catchy, so lighthearted, so poppy. And honestly, this should be a #1 hit. Honestly, there's nothing else to say about it. And really, it showcases every band member, from the bass to the violin to the trumpet. Everyone's playing, and they just sound so unified. So I'd say, if you want to get a good sense of what this album's all about, this is probably the best song to go to initially. But overall, it isn't my favorite track on the album, just because, again, that chorus is a little bit too cheerful for me. So I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. But this album's going to be good when one of my least favorite songs on it is a 9.5 out of 10. Or not one of my least favorite, but, not one of my top 4, top 5 songs. So anyway, without further ado, let's move on to the next track. Alright guys, track number 3, Swarm. This one here, guys, it's one of the heavier tracks on the album, and on first listen, probably my favorite song on the album, or my second favorite. Nowadays, I don't consider it in my top 3, top 4, but it's high up there. I mean, this song here, to summarize it in a few words, this song is big on the riffs. I mean, there's some heavy, crunchy riffs in the song, extremely bombastic. I mean, these riffs are just a barrage. And what really makes this song is the trumpet playing throughout. I mean, here, I want to do this guy justice. I don't want to forget his name. The trumpet player, Joe Gallucci, or Galuce? I don't know how to pronounce it. But his playing on this song is just phenomenal throughout. I mean, his trumpet playing just perfectly accents the guitar solos and the guitar riffs. And they're even on the quieter sections of the song, when he comes in with his riff, it sounds very bolero-esque, kind of like that kind of Latin feel to it, giving it that kind of like that big band kind of jazzy feel, but also with some of that Latin flair sprinkled in. I don't know. Honestly, reviewing this album is probably going to be my biggest challenge so far. I mean, it's so hard to review. It's so unique, and you really do just have to listen to it. And another thing I love about this song is that the chorus is just fucking anthemic. I mean, when that chorus crashes in, it's like the whole world is falling on your shoulders. It's just such a crushing chorus. And again, so catchy. But again, balanced with those bombastic riffs, it's a little bit less accessible than Fox Mulder, which was more of a joyous, upbeat kind of tune. This one here is a little bit darker, a little bit more complex. And there's a fucking amazing guitar and trumpet unison solo near the end of the song. That's just one of the highlights of the whole album for me. I mean, that solo there it just accelerates. I mean, it gains so much momentum, and then with the trumpet in the background and everything, it's just it's a furious guitar solo at the end. And I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, that's just one of the highlights of the album. Don't sleep on that solo. Just trying to see if I'm forgetting anything. Oh yeah, there's a nice I might have mentioned this already. There's a nice atmospheric section in the middle, where he's singing, "Where do I belong? Where do I belong?" And then all of a sudden, this epic thrashy riff comes in. Like, honestly, it's like a thrash metal riff, and oh man, it just builds up momentum again when Salvatore is singing, "Come again with a little bit of motion, come again with a little bit of urgency." And honestly, there's so much gravity and weight to that line right there, and the whole band's behind him with that rhythm in the background. Just fucking phenomenal. So yeah, in summary, Swarm, it's a heavy track, big on the trumpet, big on the guitar, and has one of the best guitar solos at the end of the song. So fucking masterpiece, 10 out of 10, hands down. The chorus is one of the best on the album. And yeah, at this point, like, I was fully immersed into the album, and my worries about the vocals were already kind of like dissipating. They were still there because of Fox Mulder being the first song on the album, but they were kind of dissipating at this point. And yeah, guys, it only gets fucking stronger from here. guys, now we're on track number 4, Son of a Serpent. Another hard-hitting tune. I mean, this one here, so far on the album, it's by far the moodiest on the album, both lyrically and musically. It's notable for having a much darker tone than a lot of the other songs so far, but it really does keep the intensity. And I think so far on the album, this is probably Salvatore. Oh my god, I'm forgetting his last name now. I keep calling him Salvatore. Salvatore Morano. It's probably his best vocal performance on the album so far. I mean, it really shows that like he's not just a one-trick pony with like the happy, elated, poppy vocals. He can really hit a lot of like somber notes and really really get pretty moody with his voice, which is evident on this song. Now, that's not to say he doesn't reach some pretty climactic points. The chorus of this song, again, just extremely anthemic, extremely memorable. I mean, I can't think of a catchier chorus than this. But I'm sure there's a place to bury the old me and start anew. Great lyrics too, see? Like shit like that. Just an awesome track. I love the way it opens up. It doesn't start out dark at first. It starts out with this cool, funky groove. Actually, a really funky first few minutes of the song. And but then, of course, like it's Thank You Scientist, so there's a lot of ebb and flow, and it never really stays in the same place for a long time. But once that chorus kicks in, the song is off to the races. I mean, from that chorus onward, the song's a fucking masterpiece. And again, there is a guitar solo on this song. It's one of the highlights of the whole album. It starts off extremely bluesy, but it doesn't stay bluesy for long, let me tell you. I mean, the solo just evolves, and it just accelerates, and it just reaches such climactic points. And again, the trumpet playing before that solo and after that solo is just incredible as well. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm just trying to see if I'm forgetting anything. Yeah, the ending of the song's really good too. You got the whole band coming in with their ensemble vocals and gives it this epic orchestral kind of feel. And the singer again, Salvatore, he holds this extended note that gives the song just so much gravity at the end. Kind of like on Fox Mulder right at the end of that. So this guy can hit some pretty powerful notes. But yeah, overall, it's a classic track. I'm going to have to give it nothing less than a 10 out of 10. I mean, just start to finish, back to front. It's just awesome. And again, it's a moodier song. It's the moodiest song on the album so far. But yeah, definitely doesn't lose any of the momentum from early on.
Right out the window. Trust me, it's crumbling.
So track number 5, Birdwatching. This one here, I consider it kind of an interlude track, even though it's a pretty respectable 3.5 minutes long, which is like, your average song length, I guess, but compared to the other tracks, like the 10-minute, 9-minute epics on the album, it does feel more of like an interlude, like a palate cleanser between those songs. And yeah, what's there to say about it? It's a pretty cool song. It's really moody, really atmospheric, really laid back, a nice breather between these like heavy epic songs. And another interesting thing about it, it does have like a little bit of like electronic music influence on there, especially at the end with like the drum machines and all that stuff going on. It's pretty cool. It's a nice contrast to like, everything that came before. And yeah, there's not much more to say about it. It's just a nice track, very haunting and atmospheric vocals by Salvatore Morano. So yeah, I think I'm going to give this one a pretty strong 8.5 out of 10. It really does its job on the album. It's not a standout track, but it's really enjoyable. So yeah, a pretty worthy song.
Tired of breaking your backs for a million assholes, a million assholes. Sometimes I fail, so ordinary.
Alright guys, coming in at track number 6, a song that I just freaking love, Everyday Ghosts. And this is probably the first of like my top 3 songs on the album. It's a 10-minute behemoth track. Goes through so many different changes. So much shit happens in the course of this song that honestly it feels like they just crammed like 10 or 20 songs into one. I mean, the song never stays in the same place. But what makes it amazing is that the transitions are so seamless, they're so smooth. And the song is just, again, it's just accessible because of the vocals and the anthemic chorus. And the chorus on this song in particular is one of the strongest on the album. It's so powerful. The lyrics themselves and just the way Salvatore sings it gives it so much energy, so much power. And it's just a really powerful chorus. Again, I just got to get that off the bat. The chorus on this song, top notch. But for me, what really makes this song is the guitar playing. The riffs throughout the song, the transitions, the guitar solo near the end. Again, one of the best solos on the album. And I've been saying that for the past few songs. It's just that the past few songs in particular have like excellent solos on them. But this one here is amazing. And what sets this solo apart is that this one here is very jazz fusion-y. We've heard already like a few bluesy solos, a few like really progressive rock, like John Petrucci sounding solos, like on Swarm. But on this song, it's a very jazz fusion-y. Like it could almost be like a Steely Dan guitar solo. But again, like he does bring elements of metal into it with the heavy riffing and the shredding and everything. And another thing about this song, the main riff of the track is just awesome. It's just so motivational. It has this driving force to it. I don't know if I should attempt to sing it, but you know the one at the beginning that goes I don't know. I just love that. It's so motivational. And there's a lot of funk on the song as well. The verses are very funky. One particular line that I found hilarious the first time I heard the song, and I still find kind of funny now, is the line, I'm tired of breaking my back for a million assholes. And the way he says it in his soft, understated kind of voice is kind of funny. You would expect that line to be delivered with like a lot of aggression. And I kind of found that funny and out of place at first, but now I think it just adds to the charm. And I just love how he emphasizes the word hole when he says asshole. Like, he like fucking extends that shit. Like, asshole! Like, the power. And, oh man. It's just hilarious because, I don't know, such a funny line. He delivers it with so much emotion. But again, like, maybe he could have put some more aggression into it rather than just, the way he sings it. But anyway, I digress. It's a great chorus. Oh man, there's just so many highlights to talk about with this song. Let's see here. What's another thing it has going for it? Oh, it has this amazing climax at the end where he's singing, "Don't you ever change," do, do, do. And there's this heavy riff going on in the background, and that reaches a climax before getting into the main chorus again. And I think the chorus repeats like 3 or 4 times on the song, so they must have known it was a strong one because, they're not holding back. They're giving us a healthy dose of that chorus. Excuse me. And, yeah, they really don't hold back. Fuck. So many things happen in this song. I think I mentioned the funkiness. Anyway, Everyday Ghosts. It's an epic track. 10 out of 10. This and 2 other tracks that are coming later on in the album are my top 3 songs on the album. This one here, I think, out of all the songs on the album, this one took me the longest to get into. Because there are so many time changes and there's so many bits and pieces to the song that, you really have to listen to it multiple times to decipher. So it wasn't one of my favorites at first, but now it definitely is, hands down. Either my second or third favorite track on the album. So without further ado, I'm going to give this song a 10 out of 10, and let's move on. Where do I even fucking start with this next song? Track 7, Chromology. And, fuck guys, this song here, honestly, it may be one of the best songs of all time. I mean, I haven't heard an instrumental this fucking fantastic since La Villa Strangiato by Rush from 1978. And, for the longest time, that was my favorite instrumental of all time. It still is, but honestly, this is a close second. I can't even think of an instrumental that even comes close to being this good. I mean, it has everything. It has fucking everything this band stands for. And it's my personal favorite track on the album by a long shot, actually. Like, nothing Okay, songs come close, like Everyday Ghosts and another song we'll talk about later. But this one here is just by far one of the best songs, and probably the best song of 2019. Maybe even one of the best songs of the decade. Because this song here, it brings me so much joy. It's got it all. I can literally sit down and listen to this song all fucking day. I mean, I played this song once in the car on our way to a restaurant with a family occasion, and it immediately grabbed my parents' attention. They're like, "Oh my god, like this is fucking awesome!" And usually like it takes them a while to get into new music when I introduce them to it, but this was immediate, and it's an extremely, extremely complex song. I mean, the playing on this track is it's honestly fucking mind blowing. Like this, you could tell these guys were like professionally trained musicians because the interplay with the band, the tightness, it's unmatched, it's unparalleled. And every single member of the band has a chance to shine. There's a fucking incredible violin solo, an incredible guitar solo as always, a dual sax and trumpet solo, kind of like alternating back and forth that happens near the beginning of the song, around the 3-minute mark. That's a big highlight. That when that sax and trumpet kind of alternate there, fucking phenomenal. Oh, and then it gets into this amazing trumpet groove later on. It's so jazzy. Oh man, I love that part where the trumpet's just going. It's just it's so fucking groovy. And oh man, and the song has a lot of humor too. The song stops dead stop at one point, and this random voice comes in and says, "Got a little bit of chrome." The first time I heard that, I was pissing my pants. It was freaking hilarious. And yeah, you could tell the band wasn't taking themselves too seriously. And what I love so much about this song, it's just so joyful. There's not one hint of like darkness or depression in this entire song. It's just from start to finish, 10 minutes of pure musical ecstasy. And if you're a jazz fusion fan, if you're a progressive rock fan, hell, even if you're a metal fan, this song has something to please everybody. Even at the end, when the violin starts taking more of a prominent role, you start getting those Middle Eastern vibes coming in, and it's a really eccentric violin solo too. So it really has a little bit of everything. And of course, there's heavy riffs throughout the entire song, courtesy of Tom Monda, and starts off very progressive. The first time I heard the song, it had a very spacey, very eccentric riff. So I thought this was going to be like more of a progressive rock song, but it ends up being more of like a jazz fusion kind of track with like heavy on the trumpet, heavy on the sax. And, even the bass, there's even a cool bass solo. I love those like descending notes, and oh man, it's flawless. It's like, I wish I can give this like a fucking 11 or 100 out of 10. It's that good. So yeah, Chromology. These guys are fucking schooling modern day musicians, and this is the sleekest, shiniest, chromiest fucking instrumental I've ever heard in my life. So yeah, perfect song, best song on the album, and yeah, that's it. So that's disc 1 of the album, if you're gonna consider it a double album. Then we flip it over to disc 2. And I can't believe we're only halfway through this masterpiece. I mean, it already, like, let's say the album stopped here. It would already be the best album of 2019. But no, it keeps going. So let's get into that. Alright guys, track number 8 on the album, and the first song on disc 2, Geronimo. Great track, guys, another fantastic song. And this one here, I haven't seen many reviews of this album, but a lot of the reviews kind of just go over this song, don't really talk about it much. So I kind of feel that among the songs on this album, this one's probably the least appreciated. And it is different from a lot of the other tracks on the album, but it's honestly fantastic in its own right. First off, let's start off with that chorus. For me personally, best chorus on the album. Again, just so powerful, so anthemic, kind of fitting with the theme of the other tracks on the album. But for some reason, this one here just has so much more power to it, so much more grit. I'd say the only one that comes close is probably Everyday Ghosts and Swarm. Those two have really strong choruses as well. But this one here just takes the cake. I mean, that fucking band behind that chorus, just giving it so much weight, so much gravity. And this one here, it's another moodier song. Kind of like Son of the Serpent, but a lot less funky. It's a little bit more melancholic and contemplative, and not as bombastic. Again, there is still a lot of bombastic moments, especially at the end with the trumpet, and obviously you get the heavy riffs coming in again. But for the most part, it's a pretty laid back song. There's like this cool kind of mid-tempo section in the middle with this heavy hitting drumming in the background, but the singer's hitting some pretty soaring notes. The part where he's singing I'm a horrible singer, but you know the part I'm talking about. That part there is just really haunting, really atmospheric, and really powerful. And then it does reach a climax where he says, "Found my way," and then it gets into that section I was just talking about. And again, that part there is really powerful. The guitar playing throughout, again, fantastic. I love like during the quieter verses, you could hear the guitar in the background, but instead of like the hardcore riffs that we hear later on in the song, it's kind of like tinkering in the background. So it's pretty cool. It's like the guitar player, he could have easily just put like a simple laid back riff over this section, but no, being Tom Monda, he had to do this complex kind of like tinkering guitar work in the background. And there's so many layers. But yeah, fantastic vocals. The vocals are a highlight. This song's also pretty heavy on the trumpet. A lot of trumpet sections on it. So if you're into the horn section stuff, this song will make you very happy. But yeah, overall, Geronimo, honestly, it's one of my favorite songs on the album. Probably sitting just outside of the top 3. But it's very strong, and I think it should get a lot more attention than it does, because it's a masterpiece, and it's a 10 out of 10. Alright guys, track number 9, The Life of Vermin. Guys, this one here, other than Chromology, this is my favorite song on the album. That's right, this is my second favorite track on the album, and it completes the holy trinity of songs on this album with Everyday Ghosts, Chromology, and Life of Vermin. Those 3 songs are just some of my favorites of all time right now. And fuck, what's there to say about Life of Vermin? This is one of the most aggressive tracks on the album, one of the most musically complex, and it just has so many of my favorite moments on the album. Just the vocals, it's a tour de force. The vocal performance on this song is the best on the entire album, bar none, hands down. And it's just one of the most interesting songs. Again, it's just an embodiment of everything this band stands for. You got an extremely funky intro, just so freaking funky. And then later in the song, it gets extremely heavy. There's so many hardcore riffs on the song, just perfectly combined with trumpet. And, I never thought I'd hear that. I never thought I'd hear something like this in my life, with like the heaviest metal riffs you can imagine, with bolero trumpet and giving it that Latin-infused vibe, and it just melds so perfectly. And there's just so many amazing moments. My favorite moment on the song, and probably one of the best moments on the entire album, is this trumpet solo just comes in out of nowhere. And it's one of the most epic moments of the entire album. It just reaches such incredible heights. And, oh man, there's some amazing crushing riffs later in the song, and honestly, like, you keep thinking it's gonna end, but they keep giving you more and more and more, and in the best possible way. I mean, you don't want it to end, but at one point, the singer screams at the end, and you think, that's gonna be like the closing part of the song, like basically what they did on Fox Mulder and a few of the other tracks. But no, it keeps going, and it keeps progressing, and they keep just giving you more and more and more. It honestly has so much to offer. Honestly, like, the big surprise is right at the end. Honestly, right when you think it's gonna end. Like, okay, maybe it didn't end before, but now for sure it's gonna end. And out of nowhere, this crazy guitar solo comes in, and honestly, you can't predict these guys. I mean, there are just so many twists and turns, and it just keeps you so interested in throughout. But yeah, that trumpet solo is one of the best parts of the whole album, and honestly, there's a lot of great like vocal melodies in the middle, especially there's this acoustic part right before the trumpet solo, and up to this point, it's really like the first acoustic part on the whole album, and it just has that Latin flair and that vibe, and the vocals are so freaking good. And again, the vocals on this song, the flow within his singing is just fantastic. I mean, he just goes from one section to the next at the drop of a hat. Fuck. It's just one of the best songs ever. Honestly, like, it's debatable which one's better, this or Chromology. I gotta go for Chromology because it's like the epic instrumental of the album. But this one here is a strong second. And again, I feel like this song doesn't really get the recognition it deserves. A lot of people focus in on like the earlier tracks on the album, like Fox Mulder, Swarm. Fuck, felt like a million years ago when I was talking about those. But I really feel like later on in the album, starting with Everyday Ghosts and onward up to this song, that's like the true meat and potatoes of this album. And it's just, you know, it's fantastic. There's still 2 more epics left on the album. I like them slightly less than the epics that came before, but they're still fantastic. So, Life of Vermin, 10 out of 10. No questions asked. Let's move on to the next track. Alright guys, track number 10 is called Shatners Lament. And this is basically a short, sweet, 1-minute lounge jazz kind of instrumental. You know, it has that like late night, misty, you know, like sitting in a bar at 3 a.m. kind of atmosphere. And it's just a really cool, just another little palate cleanser between like the 2 epic tracks, Life of Vermin, and then the song after this, which is Anchor. And I love it. It just has a nice like little charm to it. And I love the title, Shatners. I'm assuming they mean William Shatner from Star Trek. Just, you know, their nerdiness kind of seeping into the song. But yeah, really cool track. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Love the jazzy late night vibe.
Still we are sinking. Still we take our time. It's backwards way of thinking. No reason. I've been thinking I'm insane.
Alright guys, what are we? I think we're at track number 12 now, or track number 11. I lost count. Anyway, here we have another epic on the album. I believe the second longest song on the album. It's called Anchor. And, you know, I'm going to try not to sound negative, but I do feel that this is probably like the worst of like the longer tracks on the album. And it's not a bad song. Far from it. It's actually fantastic. I just think compared to a lot of the other songs, it doesn't have like the charm to it. It doesn't have like, you know, it doesn't have a lot of like the quirky kind of vibes that a lot of the other songs have. And it doesn't have as much content packed into it. So I think the 10-minute runtime is kind of unjustified, especially coming after Life of Vermin, which was like 8.5 minutes, 9 minutes, and so much more happened on that song than Anchor. And again, I love Anchor. It's a great song, but it's kind of a slow burn. The first 2 minutes are really nothing really exciting happens. It's just kind of like this slow build up. And then when it finally does build up at around the 2-minute mark, you do get a fantastic chorus, some really meaningful lyrics. But, you know, like the song is just more of the same until about like the 5-minute mark. Then at the 5-minute mark, it really, really takes off. I mean, there's this fantastic trumpet build up. And then it really feels epic and even orchestral at points. You got the violin going on in the background. Some really moody kind of parts. And overall, this is a very moody song. It doesn't really have the joy or the charisma of a lot of the other songs. But you know what it does have? Another fantastic Tom Monda guitar solo. And this one here is really kind of like proggy, very John Petrucci-esque. And yeah, it comes out of nowhere, and it's just a really intense and in-your-face guitar solo. So that's one of the main things about this song that keep me coming back. But the thing is, when the song transitions after the guitar solo, you think, you know, like the other songs, like Life of Vermin, it's just going to keep building and building. But then it just cuts back to kind of like that original theme of the song, and it really just kind of stays there until the end. But, you know, like there's nothing wrong with that. Like the melodies are fantastic. It's a really melancholic kind of song. Really powerful lyrics, powerful vocals. But just overall, for a 10-minute song, I feel like compared to the other ones, they could have done more. But again, if this wasn't Thank You Scientist, and this was another band, and I was judging it on that, I would be praising this song to like the highest standard. But because the other epic songs have been so phenomenal up to this point, I have to kind of sound negative. But just understand that I do love the song. Hell, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. That's how much I love it.
On a new moon, can you hear my voice from here.
I almost forgot about this song, guys. Song number 12, New Moon. This one here is a really cool track, another short interlude kind of tune, kind of like Birdwatching and Shatners Lament and, songs like that. And it's really cool. It has like this cool oriental, kind of like Chinese kind of vibe to it, and some really moody vocals by Salvatore. And yeah, just a really cool interlude track. Nothing else I could really say about it. But yeah, pretty interesting song. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Oh yeah! We've come to the end, guys, and as if this album wasn't already fucking jam-packed to the gills with incredible songs, the band just go all out in the final track, the 8-minute title track, heavy as fuck, Terraformer. This song here just rocks, guys. You could say what you want about the other songs, overanalyze it, all that shit. This song here is just a straight-up progressive rock, heavy metal masterpiece. It's all about the riffs on this one. It's all about the solos, the guitar solos, and it's just a masterclass in unique heavy metal riffing. I mean, honestly, everything about this song is just bone-crunching awesomeness, and, it still has its poppy moments, it still has its jazzy moments, but for the most part, it's just a balls-to-the-wall, proclamation that this band can still rock, and they don't really need, to include a lot of those jazzy elements to prove that, or to make themselves sound unique, because the riffs on this song are just, although they're heavy, although they're very, metal influenced, they sound like no other metal band ever. I mean, there's just something about these riffs that they're just so unconventional. They just come out of nowhere, and it just leaves me speechless with my mouth open, because of how freaking awesome and progressive and unique these riffs are. Because, you think, okay, it's 2019, after a certain point in time, metal riffs kind of get repetitive. You kind of see bands, taking a little bit from here, a little bit from there. It wasn't like back in the day when Sabbath, they had all the riffs in the world for their picking. No wonder Tony Iommi came up with so many amazing riffs. But nowadays it's harder. It's hard not to be it's hard to be imaginative. It's hard not to rip off other riffs. But fucking listen to this song, and I dare you to find a riff that even sounds remotely like this. It's just incredible. Some epic vocals on the song. What are you singing? Speak to me, speak to me. That part right there is just gets me emotional. And again, the guitar solo at the end is just epic. Really takes its time. It's flashy, but it's not as technically, it's not as wankery as some of the other solos on the album. Not that any of them really are at the end of the day, but you know what I mean. Fucking amazing song. Honestly, I don't know what else to say. It's probably one of my favorites outside of my top 3. Probably this, Geronimo, and Swarm are probably my top 3 outside of my top 3, if that makes any sense. But this one's probably number 4. Yeah, probably number 4. It's just so good. And honestly, that's all I gotta say about it. It's a 10 out of 10, no questions asked. And yeah, that ends the album, guys. You know what? This has been one of the most challenging reviews. It's so hard to break down what makes this band so fantastic, but basically it's just, they're just so unique, and they're so experimental, and they bring you so much joy when you listen to it. And this album here is just fucking phenomenal, as I've already mentioned throughout the entire review. I hope these guys go on tour. Again, I hope they come to Toronto, but if not, I'm hoping that they'll become a little bit bigger in the next few years with their next album. Maybe it'll gain a little bit more traction, and then they'll be able to tour wherever the fuck they want. But Terraformer, if you haven't heard it yet, guys, pick it up. It's my pick for best album of 2019. And honestly, just buy it. Don't even listen to it first. Just buy it. You're gonna love it. If you're into progressive rock, if you're into jazz fusion, you can't go wrong. So, Happy New Year's again, guys. Thanks for joining me. And yeah, take care. Stay tuned for more videos. I'm gonna be back to school in a week or so my rate of video uploading is going to slow down a little bit, but I'm definitely not going to be giving up, and hopefully there's going to be a lot more reviews coming your way. So, peace out, guys.